Hello, my name is Val Rodionov, and today I'm going to tell you the story that I promised about chewing. So it is a supplementary video that I promised to record and tell you the story from my day 7. On day 7 I promised, and it is supplementary to day 8. Day 8 of my way to 1 meal a day diet. So that's a series of videos, and this is the first gold nugget, which is a separate video. In any case, here it comes. So many years ago, a friend of mine told me a story, a fascinating story that caught my attention. So I don't remember all the intricate details, but I remember the concept, the idea. And here's my version of that story. So there was an ancient Asian warrior a long time ago, and he lived in a small house or apartment or room, and the food was scarce. And he was an assassin or a warrior, and he received an assignment. So to do that assignment, I assume kill somebody or do something of that sort, he boiled a bowl of rice, and he did this ceremony. He was sitting in front of fire, his sword was next to him, and this bowl of rice, and he was eating it and chewing it to the degree where it completely dissolved, and absorbed in the mouth, even, or swallowed. So, and he was chewing it and doing this for many hours until the last grain of rice was completely dissolved and absorbed. So it prepared him for a long walk, for several day work, basically. And when I listened that story, it somehow touched me. It was so deep, so powerful. I said, "Wow!" People even in ancient times knew some tricks that might change lives of many or improve health. So if you chew that long, then your body would most likely be able to better to process all the food and absorb all the nutrients, and it totally makes sense. When I was before that, I didn't ever pay attention to the chewing. I remember my uncle was telling me, eat slowly. You need to chew. And I was a teenager. I was doing lots of exercises, and the food was burning. Like whatever I shove in there, it would burn immediately. And he was saying chew like 40 times each bite of food, and so on and so forth. I didn't care. It just went completely by me, and I felt like it was a fairy tale or something. At the time of this, I heard the story, I was about 20 years old, and I already had some health problems. I had slightly elevated blood pressure. My digestion was sometimes not working well. When I was trying to exercise, my liver would ache, so I didn't exercise much. And the fact that the story was fascinating, and after that, somehow I became interested in health and to learn about health, how to improve my health, and it became one of the interesting subjects to me. I started doing research about doing cleansings, doing fasting, and thus I was able to improve my health big time. Got rid of digestive issues. My liver stopped aching. My blood pressure became under control. I never took any medications. So, and he also told me another story, which was more powerful, or these two stories in the combined just changed my life completely. I might tell that story some other day. But here's how chewing works. A human body is essentially a machine, bio-machine. And bio means it's biological. And since we're living in this physical universe, so all the physics and chemistry laws apply, or most of them. But there's something or somebody is controlling this machine. We can talk about this some other day. But in any case, we can consider the body as a biomachine. And essential part of it is like a chemistry. You can consider it as a chemistry lab. When you inhale or when you smell something, when you take something in, the body is capable to analyze all the chemical ingredients. And if it's food, then it can digest that food, break it apart, and make it usable for the body. So, and here's how the process works. Let's say when you something else about the body chemistry lab, right? So you can consider it as a chemistry lab, digestive system, and in control all of that, there's a kind of supercomputer, very powerful, that can process all the data, all the chemical components that you receive, even with the air. Air itself has many different gases, and oxygen is one of them. It's just 16% of the air that we breathe in is oxygen. There's some carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and other gases that are essential for us to survive. So, and this powerful computer calculates everything instantly. And for example, when you deal with food, the digestion and these computers in the lab start working, and even before you eat something. When you look at something, it starts calculating, it receives the visual data. When you smell something, it receives the smell data and also starts processing. When you bite on something, your mouth is capable to analyze the taste and the chemical substance components of the food that you eat. And this computer is constantly calculating and trying to figure out what needs to be done in order to absorb this food and take advantage of it. And let's say you eat something, you put it in your mouth. The mouth is full of sensors, basically. It kind of senses what type of food, chemicals come into your mouth, and starts calculating what juices does it need to produce, how many of those juices, what chemical those juices consist of chemical components. Let's say the first digestion happens in your mouth, the saliva. So when you see something or smell something, you might even feel that your mouth is watering. So that's the computer kind of giving your lab commands what to do. Produce saliva, produce saliva with such and such concentration or whatever. So, and digestion starts happening, the first kind of stage is happening in your mouth. When you take food in, so saliva and chewing, the function, what's happening in the mouth is, first of all, you tear the food with your teeth, and then you grind it. So the pieces become smaller. So the smaller the pieces, the easier for the digestive tract, for the stomach and for the guts to process the food. But it's not the more, it's a very important, but it's not all of it. So you could say, oh, I can use a blender and just blend it to bits and pieces and just swallow it. No, so saliva is very important. And saliva consists of enzymes. Enzymes are like chemical elements that allow it to break certain parts of food apart. And let's say if you drink something, your computer doesn't have enough time to process and to analyze it in your mouth, and when the food goes into your stomach, it also has sensors, kind of can sense what's inside of it, but it's lacking the processing data that happens in the mouth. So that's kind of one of the dangers of eating liquid foods like soups or even juices and all the drinks. And when people drink water or beverages with food, it just breaks this process. And that's what happens if the computer doesn't have enough time or data to process all the signals. It cannot properly digest it. So as a result, the body gets overstressed. Lots of toxins go into the body, and if this process is constantly happening, the body becomes weaker and less capable, more toxins, and health degrades. Computer doesn't work as well, and thus many various diseases. So one of the very important things is saliva. So this talk about the chewing. So what happens in the mouth? Again, the food is shredded, and it is supposed to be kind of processed with the saliva. Different foods require different time to process it. Let's say the longest processing in the mouth should be happening with carbs and sugars. So let's say what are the carb foods? Grains, bread, all this stuff that has starches in it, sugary foods as well. So let's say if I take a piece of bread and chew it for a long time, so then it should digest. It becomes turns into some type of sugar, which are easily digested in the digestive system. So one other thing is, if you don't chew enough food in your mouth and you swallow it with the saliva is slightly alkaline, like pH is slightly alkaline, but the stomach juices are acid, pretty strong acid. So, and when alkaline saliva goes into the acid, acid kind of neutralizes the alkaline very quickly. So, and that saliva is no longer working on the food inside of the stomach. So it's basically almost instantly neutralized. So it is important to process the food inside of the mouth. And again, starches are the most, takes the longest to process. And basically, I don't know the exact numbers. I've heard somewhere like 80% of the digestion of carbohydrates and sugary foods happens in the mouth with the saliva. Everything else takes just 20%. And if it's not digested in the mouth, then the body is overstressed. It most likely will not be able to process it properly. So that's the health problems and bad digestion and toxins and so on and so forth. The protein-based foods do not require as much chewing as carbohydrates. Fruits, non-starchy fruits, and fruit juices do not require long chewing, so you can swish it around and just swallow it. Interesting. In the beginning of the last century, there was an American food writer. His name was last name was Fletcher. He invented somehow. I don't know how he came about this idea. Probably from ancient stories, like the story about the ancient warrior. And he was overweight and he had lots of problems with health. And he started chewing for a long time, and his health drastically improved. He lost all the extra weight, and he became very strong and even competed in heavy lifting exercises and was winning. And he developed even this theory and system how to chew for a long time. And he was proponent of chewing to the degree where, like, chew all the foods to the degree where it's completely liquid, and you just swallow, and until it's completely tasteless, and you just swallow those juices, and it'll solve all the issues with everything. I think you can do some more research on this. I still think that not all the foods require this much chewing, so you still need some fiber in your digestive tract for the bacteria to work properly. And again, starches and carbs, they require most of the chewing. So I've heard different kind of requirements or advice, like 30. You bite something and you chew it 35 times, or another suggestion was 40 times, like my uncle was saying. Fletcher was saying 100 chews, at least 100 chews. So what I did, I made multiple attempts of doing that, but it's always kind of inconvenient, boring. When you have dinner with somebody, it's almost impossible just to sit there and chew, and it takes a lot of time. So that's probably the main reason that I didn't take it very seriously, didn't use it much. However, after last fasting, during last fasting in last November, I was doing more research on different subjects of health, and I started learning about chewing and about how to eat legumes like beans and lentils. I loved split peas when we were growing up. My mom would often cook split peas, like just boiling with some onions, some oil, or split pea soup. I love those. I didn't remember if they were gases or not. It was just delicious, and I loved it. But when I was growing up, I had less and less of this food, and at some point I realized that I have gases, lots of gases when I eat something with beans, and it was not convenient because it was I felt bloating and gases. It was sometimes embarrassing if you at work or somebody somewhere else and just pass gases. For Russians, it's almost unacceptable. And I didn't know how to deal with it, so I just quit eating it. And during my fast, I was reading and trying to figure out how others eat it. Some say you need to put it in the water for a long time. Others say you need to add some magic spices into it. I had tried it in the past, it didn't work well, but I found the data that the legumes, they consist of complex sugars. So like in terms of chemistry, it's very complex, not simple sugars, but complex. And in order to digest them completely, you need to chew them for a long time, and you need to develop a special like bacteria and like inside of your digestive system. And once it is all your digestive system is tuned into this, then beans and legumes will be digested properly. I said, oh, I'm going to try that. And the advice that I found was just eat a little bit every day, but chew it very thoroughly. And I started doing that to develop a habit. What I was doing, and I was refeeding my body after 45 days without food. I was refeeding it, so it was a very careful process. I was enjoying food extremely, even like small bits and pieces. So I would try different beans and lentils. I would cook them, and I would chew them I would set timer for 6 minutes. I take one spoon, Without liquids, so I would make them kind of firm with no liquids. I would put them a tablespoonful of beans in my mouth, and I would chew them for 6 minutes until my timer goes off. By that time, it's completely dissolved. It's like almost like water, and you don't even feel when it goes through. By the end of this chewing, it just goes by itself. It feels like it's absorbed in the mouth, but in fact, it goes into the stomach. So that's basically how you would chew the foods. And I was able to develop my digestive system to accept that those legumes, and now I have no gas. Sometimes it depends on the type of beans. Still probably slightly different bacteria is required. And I enjoy beans a lot. And I've read many articles about beans. Most of them saying that it's extremely good product to eat. Beans, they have lots of fiber and lots of vitamins and minerals that do not exist in other foods where the amounts are high. And vegetarians take lots of their protein from beans, as I learned from those articles as well. There's some articles that against some particular beans. I don't know if it's true or not. I would not go too much into consideration of good or bad. Everyone has to decide for themselves if it's good or bad. They can take advice and test it. In any case, so that's basically the idea why we need to chew very thoroughly. And again, when you learn about it, you can develop a habit, and then you will decide how long you're going to chew. Maybe it will save your life. Maybe it will help you to get rid of some diseases. Let's say I know for a fact that slow chewing heals heartburn. So I know that many people in America suffer from heartburn, and slow chewing heals that problem. So the other thing is liquids. So when you take liquids, so you can't really chew the liquid. You can't hold it for 5-6 minutes in your mouth. You naturally want to swallow it. So, and what happens with the liquids, people just wash out their saliva, and it goes down the drain basically, and the food is not processed. So this is, I don't know who invented this, but I think this is one of the biggest diseases here in the United States, where people drink water with all their meals. Sometimes I go to a restaurant with my American friends or coworkers. There's a large glass of water, and many people just drink several large glasses of water with their meals. They're not chewing the meals. So, and it's a way to poor health, I can tell you for sure. So avoid drinking beverages with a meal. If you must drink or just a habit, try to minimize it as much as possible. So that's one thing. So the other thing is, when you take food into your stomach, the stomach is there to process the food and to continue digestion. First, digestion happens in your mouth, then it goes into your stomach, and digestion continues in the stomach. And of course, the computer calculates everything. It calculates how much juices to produce for the stomach, and what concentration of each component, chemical component, for the better processing of the food that you ingested. So it constantly calculates. So, and what happens, it is supposed to keep that food that you consumed and process it completely, like any chemistry lab. So anything process has to complete, like a washing machine, let's say. So when you put clothes into the washing, the cycle has to complete. So everything is washed. There's no more detergent in the clothes, so it is ready to go. So the idea is kind of similar. So the stomach has to finish the processing all the foods to digest everything, and only then it pushes it or releases it into the small intestine. So, and that release is there's a kind of a valve that releases the I'd say mulch or like paste after fully digested in the stomach. It releases this paste into the small intestine, and that valve, it's called I forgot the medical term for it. Basically, a valve. It's like a muscle valve, so it is closed. But when it's you, let's say, drink water, it opens up, so water can go out from the stomach into the small intestine. And what happens when there's lots of liquid during the digestion? If you drink a lot of liquid, this valve opens up, and all the liquid and juices and some food goes into the small intestine without being processed fully in the stomach. And that's another stress on your body, because the small intestine ideally should receive fully processed in the stomach food. But when you consume too much water or beverages with the meal, it flushes everything like down the drain. So the juices are no longer in the stomach, but the food is still there, not completely processed. What happens? The computer starts to recalculate. And it's in order to process this food, it needs to tell the computer to excrete the additional juices. And that's where lots of stress happens on the body, on the digestive system, and the food cannot be completely processed. And if you overate, in addition to everything, so that's it kind of shuts down. You feel bad, and you want to sleep, or tired, and so on and so forth. That's the mechanics of it. So ideally, you eat a limited amount of food, without like dry food, or as little liquid as possible. You eat it, not too much, so the stomach doesn't get like overfilled. Let's say this much. There's some advice like to eat as much as your fist for ideal digestion. So this food is there, it's being processed. You don't drink anything for the next at least 2 to 4 hours, no liquids. Then it would properly digest, and then that valve would open, and it would push it into the small intestine, and the small intestine starts the next process of digesting. So there like pancreas juices go in, liver bile goes in. Again, the computer calculates what the concentration, how much needs to be added there, and it starts processing. And there are different processes in the small intestine and then large intestine, and the whole digestive tract from here to the exit anus is about 30 feet long. It's about 9 meters long. So, and it takes, for protein food, it takes about 24 hours from the moment you bite it and until it completely goes out, like excrements go, the remains of that protein food. It takes about 24 hours. Give it to take it. Let's say if it's carb-based food, it digests faster. Let's say for heavy protein food, it takes about 4 hours in the stomach. For carb-most food, it would take about 2 hours to digest in the stomach. That there's another kind of reason try not to mix protein food with carb food. So there's even some studies or some systems that say eat one type of the food in each meal. Let's say if it's carbs, eat mostly carbs. If it's protein, eat mostly protein with some green leafy vegetables are kind of can be combined with both. Starchy vegetables, let's say like carrots and like beets, they can be combined with carb-based food like bread and pasta and grains, and green leafy vegetable or leafy vegetables, broccoli, they can be digested with both protein-based and carb-based. So that I gave you a lot of data about chewing and how the digestive tract works to a degree, not complete picture, but now you know why chewing is important. And I would encourage you to look into this. If you don't have enough data from this video, do your own research. Do some practicing, testing, see how it works. Again, it won't work from one day, so you need to develop a habit. And if you do it for a month, you probably will notice a difference. And the effects, the benefits of it are, first of all, you won't eat as much food because it takes way longer to chew it all. And when you chew slowly, then brain gets the signal from the stomach, okay, I'm full. And it usually it takes like 20 minutes from the moment you start chewing until this signal goes to the brain and it says, okay, I'm full. So keep in mind that. And the second thing, benefit, you will choose your foods more wisely. You will probably say, okay, I'm not going to chew on chips for 20 minutes. I would probably better to choose something healthier, maybe organic, some organic food. So that's all. I empowered you in this regard. So please leave your comments if you have any successes. You might ask questions if I have time. I don't like to go and read all the comments and answer all the questions, mostly because I don't have time. I like to read them, but I don't always have time to write all the answers. But somebody else can answer your questions. So write your success stories, very important, because people will read the comments. And if you had a success story, they will read it. It might save their life. Very important. And if you like the video, put likes. If you don't like the video, stop watching. And I'll see you on my next videos.